Jay, I guess I'll be super controversial in your podcast today. But like when I see the remote work versus like in-person work arguments, like, and you see this on LinkedIn and everywhere, it's like, oh, this company wants in-person work and, they don't trust their people. And then, the flip side is like, well, we don't believe remote work is effective. It's like, there's a million companies in the US alone. I think it's totally fine to have a company be remote. I think it's totally fine to have a hybrid culture. I think it's totally fine if you want your employees in office. I know it's a talking point, but like employees, like if you're looking for a great job, there's plenty of everything. Take the time to go find the right company for you. If your company like wants you in office and you don't want to go in office, I'm not trying to say like it's not hard to find a new job. Like I'm not trying to dismiss that. So maybe it takes you 6 months to go find the right company. But if the company's the wrong fit for you in your life, wishing that the company would change or complaining about it isn't as effective as just finding a company that speaks to you.
Welcome to another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm your host, Shay Wheat, founder of Grace and Ease Productions, where we support entrepreneurs just like you with ways to create a profitable business, scale your business with events, allowing you to make sales faster with greater predictability and less team burnout. Now, I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest because when he's not leading his team or spending time with his family, James Lawrence is likely coaching youth football, driving a race car faster than 200 miles an hour, learning to fly, or diving into one of his favorite books. Now, he has more than 25 years of being a CEO and founder, but believes that the cornerstone of every successful organization is its people. His mission is to help people love their work and get connected with their teams because, in his words, when people work better, we all win together. Please help me welcome James to the Creating Powerful Impact stage. How are you?
I'm good. Excited to be here.
Lovely. Well, I want to dive into this whole team thing, right? So I know a number of my clients, a number of people in my mastermind. When the topic of team comes up, you tend to hear a lot of grumbles and people like the founders going, oh, my team, right? So I'm curious if there is a way that maybe you can tell us either where this passion for cultivating a great workplace and empowering your team comes from, where it started, maybe it was from a not so great experience. Kind of give us the lowdown there.
Yeah, good question. I think if an option is to say that I did it wrong for a very long time, I might check that box.
Like twice, 3 times, 4 times.
leading people is challenging. And, especially I think as a young CEO, you want to have all the answers. And, I really learned kind of from an early age that, listening and understanding is really critical. I didn't do it especially well. And for me, it was, really wanting to be a great leader and then recognizing that I didn't always get the outcomes that I wanted. And I was very blessed to have a gentleman, probably about 8 years into my, being a CEO role, pull me aside, and that was a long time, and said, hey, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that, you've got all the answers. The bad news is you've got all the answers. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I thought my job
That's not helpful.
Well, I think as a CEO, you kind of buy into, or as any leader, you kind of buy into this kind of traditional macho approach of leadership, that your job is to set the tone, set the agenda, lead the troops, tell everybody where to be, where to stand, hold everybody accountable. And you don't really recognize that like leadership is really about listening and understanding and really being of service to your team. So for me, it's been a 25-year evolution of kind of learning how to be a more effective leader, and then, really caring about wanting to be intentional about that. And I think, you'd mentioned a lot of people kind of roll their eyes when you ask about, the challenges of their team. And that's a real thing. It's more difficult to be a leader or a business owner or CEO today than it was 5 or 10 years ago, especially with the changes in the world of work. And so, the question really becomes, how do you turn people into a competitive advantage for you rather than like a pain point? And I think a lot of leaders unfortunately, look at their team like something that has to be managed versus an opportunity really to build something really special.
How do you create a team that makes it a competitive advantage?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is that recognizing that like people are this, finite resource that are incredibly valuable. If you were to take the average leader, and I've been blessed enough to work with a lot of them over the last 2 or 3 years, I think you have really two different kinds of leaders. I think you have people that really recognize that building a people first team is something that's intentional and needs to be invested in. And I think, there's another group, which is like people are just another one of an array of resources that have to be kind of dealt with as part of being a leader. Like, well, I have my machinery, I have my intellectual capital, I have my patents, I have my people. And how important is it that we invest in our team? And I mean training, that could be, it could be employee benefits, but I'm talking about like maybe even more of the investing in them when it comes to whether do they have access to coaching? Do I train them? Do my managers get trained, especially my younger managers? Do my individual contributors have the resources they need? Those things I think are looked at like optional, like a vitamin. And I think other leaders look at them as like a top priority. And so I think ultimately, if you looked at the data, you'd see that over time, I love your cat, by the way. I have a
Right?
black.
Isn't he cute? He's like, I'm here to learn. What's going on? This is Bubba, everybody.
I have a cat, Famoso, that looks very, very similar.
Oh, yay.
But yeah, I mean, so I think the difference is that, how intentional are you about it as a leader? Do you wake up in the morning and go, people are a core part of my operational philosophy, or are they just simply a means to an end?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we go along the lines of it's essentially obviously the CEO, but the leader's responsibility to engage the employees or engage your team. Um, I think that it's probably a bit of a paradigm shift for a lot of people. How would somebody start going about that? And what, like, are there steps to take, or is it literally like just go and find a coach that can help them with that? Or is it going into your values and saying, okay, this is what we value, and we want to make sure that everybody has personal development coaching within our organization? Or where would you start?
Well, it's not easy. I mean, that's the first thing, is people are really a pain in the ass.
Hence the reason for the grumbles when you say,
Yeah,
let's talk about
I
team.
mean, there's no easy button to
Yeah.
this. And even in my own organizations, I mean, we're in the middle, of different organizations that I've owned and led and run. There's no just simple path to like, hey, we're just going to just press a button and everything's going to be just fantastic, right? We got to do the work. We got to be willing to do the work. And I think where it starts, Jay, and I think like I really appreciate the question because it's very actionable. Like, if I'm a manager, what do I do? Well, the
Yeah.
first thing is I think you have to start with your intention. And that intention is like, I'm going to wake up in the morning today, and what am I going to do with my time? I got a bunch of reports on my desk. I got a bunch of emails. I got a bunch of crap I got to do. And where do my people rank in the rank of all the other shit that I got to do?
Hmm.
And I think if you start with intention. You start with the idea that I'm going to walk into work today and I'm going to move people up a rank or two. And not just people collectively. I might pick one person and go, I've noticed there's a person on my team that isn't performing as well, that seems down, that's got something going on, that's struggling with a project, that's struggling with their manager, that's struggling with me. And I'm going to invest in them today. Like, to me, that's where you start, is with intention, because if the intention isn't there, it's very hard to build a plan without intention. And your intention needs to be, I'm going to wake up every day, I'm going to think of my people as a core resource for me. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, it's easy to ignore,
Yeah.
because the person that's in trouble, that's in your team, they're not like a pinging email, right? Like they may not be, it may not be in your face like a report that has to be read or a check that needs to be signed. But in no other words, like 10 minutes of time spent listening to someone or checking in with them is probably far more valuable than rolling through your emails, that you came in that morning.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about, so let's say larger organizations, where you have hundreds of employees, and you're a manager and you're like, I want to invest in my team. I want to do something, but is that where they start? Is literally just kind of investing in them and spending some time with them and checking in and seeing what's going on with them? Or are there other things that they can do that would move the needle forward, or a way that they can easily talk to their boss and their boss's boss to say, how can we incorporate something? Because when I feel that we invest in the team, then we're going to get a better output, which is allow us to hit the numbers that you want us to hit.
Yeah, so large companies, I mean, you'd think they would have this whole people thing figured out.
You would think, but I look at my fiance and I'm like, holy cow, it's a large corporation, and they don't. Like it almost looks like they promote to incompetence. And then you've got managers not knowing what it is that they're doing to support teams that right? And then nobody's happy.
Well, I mean, a smaller team, a benefit of a smaller team is you just inherently have better organic connectivity. And so I think there's this perception that like, oh, you're a Fortune 500 company, like you've got, you know, your people understanding how people work together, figuring out how my coworkers like to work and communicate, getting the training I need to be an effective manager. I mean, you'd think, well, that's a Fortune 500 company. I mean, they've got that checked. But the truth is that, and it's not anybody's fault. Larger organizations are just more complex. The points of connectivity, the value gaps between what goes on the wall and the way managers and the way the real DNA of the company is. And so I like to call that, Shay, what's your organizational DNA? And by the way, usually has zero to do with what's on your mission statement. Like your organizational DNA is what does the organization live every day? And by the way, that isn't fixed quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go slap a new mission statement on the wall, no matter what, business you're in, whether it's industrial manufacturing or technology or software. And anybody that's worked in any company of decent size knows just because you put a mission statement up or hand out, new coffee cups, I mean, it doesn't actually mean that the organization is behaving differently. And it probably takes several years to significantly pitch organizational DNA one way or another. So your question was, you're a manager or a leader in a larger company, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
So the good news is it's no different than what you do in a small company. You might be in alignment with your organizational DNA of your company, or you might be out of alignment, but it really doesn't matter because the manager-employee relationship is really the critical one. I mean, the data says without a doubt that your relationship with your manager absolutely typically drives the majority of your happiness, your satisfaction at work. You could work for a terrible company, but you have a great manager and maybe your manager's manager is phenomenal. You're probably going to stick around in that organization because you love your team. You resonate with them. They speak your language. You like the DNA they've built. And so I think you fix this, on a daily basis by being intentional. I think it's the same playbook. And if you're an individual contributor, being able to, I got asked this question the other day. Okay, what if I'm not a manager? What can I do? Well, you need to build a relationship with your manager. I mean, that's the number one thing you can do. And it was a little controversial, but, and it was on a podcast and I got a little pushback from the podcast host, but I'll tell you what I said. A lot of people wait for their manager to connect with them, thinking it's the manager's job to meet them. Well, that's not how a high performer thinks.
Ooh, yes.
A high performer walks into work and comes across and meets their manager, wherever their manager needs to be met, and says, how do I build a better relationship with you? How do I perform better? How am I doing? The question came about because someone said, well, I don't get any feedback from my manager. And my response was, did you walk to your manager's office and ask how you're doing? That might be an unpopular position, but I think you've got to have the agency, whether you're a manager or an individual contributor, for your own career. You can't sit here and say, well, my manager never asked, never gave me any feedback on how I was doing. Well, what'd you do about it?
Right.
Well, I just
A
waited.
relationship is not just one person.
So I think you can alter the course of the organizational DNA, as an individual contributor, as a manager, as a CEO, as a leader. I think everybody can have some agency in how that forms up in a team.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about like the Gen Zs and all of the hype and the things that are going on around their discontent and they're so hard to work with, this, that, and the other. Tell us how to better understand that workplace discontent and how do we change it around?
So let me start with my favorite thing about Gen Z. So I'm 48. So we have a bunch of like 40 to 60-year-old managers reading books about work-life balance,
Yeah.
complaining about Gen Z that's actually living work-life balance.
That's epic. Say that again, because that is
No, this is true.
amazing.
It's like it took me a while to figure this out, but we're all like, wow, we've got to have balance at home, and it's really critical that we have time to recharge. And then Gen Z takes time to recharge. We're like, these damn whippersnappers never work. They're not here at work till 6. They actually want some free time. Like, I can't even get a hold of them. I'm sending them Slack messages that, they won't even respond. It's like, I don't know if we've got this wrong and maybe Gen Z has this right and we're just bitching about it because they're actually living the life we want. I honestly, I hate generational comparisons, and I'm going to tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, there's a company for every person, and there's a team for every person, and there's a team for every company. And so I think candor and honesty is what's most important. And I'll give you, Shay, I'm going to give you another example. So I would respect a CEO that was on your podcast that walked up to you and said, my job is to make $1 million a year for our business of profit. I don't give a shit about people. I don't care about, customer success. I don't care about my brand. I need to make $1 million in profit.
Mm-hmm.
And you might go, well, God, that's horrible. Like, why would someone say that? Well, there's a beauty in actually saying what you're about.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that everybody in your company either goes, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I want to make $1 million profit, and I want to take some of that home. And I'm good with that. I don't care about the brand. I don't care about, Taco Tuesday with the team. And I don't want to do like the free tea. I just want to make my salary and go home. And I appreciate the CEO being direct and ruthless.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what happens. Shay, what happens is someone gets up and talks about their culture and all this other BS, and then every decision they make is just about making $1 million in profit.
Yeah.
So that's actually what happens.
Right.
So my thing is, I'm going to tie this around to Gen Z, which is that, if someone walks into your office and in an interview and says, work-life balance is really important to me, and I want to go, I want to live a very balanced life, don't hire them and then complain about that.
Mm-hmm.
Realize, ask the questions, understand, do I have a place for this person? Is work-life balance part of our organizational culture? And if so, then that's okay. That's what comes with this person. I don't think it's fair to say it's just a Gen Z thing, but I think just this kind of candid discussion about what each party, what's important to people is critical. Like, some people don't mind working 90 hours a week, and some people want a really flexible work environment.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think you're right. It's that transparency. It's saying that you're like, oh, we're a work-life balance type company, but then getting pissed off when there is work-life balance happening is out of alignment. And so it's taking a look at what is it really for you as a manager of your team or the CEO of your company? What is it actually? And being upfront. And then those that are in alignment with it are going to be like, cool, I'm on board, let's go. And the ones that aren't are going to go to the side and, release themselves, so to speak, right? And not be a part of it. So even if you were to hear like, oh, the bro culture, and this is such a bro type company, if that's not in alignment with you, you're not going to stay. But they're upfront about it. And that's who they attract. Same thing, right?
Well, I think it's, I mean, it's just this larger idea that companies should be pretty upfront about what is important to them, and leaders should. And then I think, I'd urge individual contributors or, younger employees looking for their first job just to be intentional about what you're looking for. Like there's a company for you. Like if you want to come to work in flip-flops and eat granola all day and then go ride your skateboard for 2 hours in the middle of the day, like there's a company that like is filled with people and it's probably totally cool. And they probably expect you to put in work at other times if you're going to go skateboarding for 2 hours in the middle of the day. But like there are cultures that's totally normal. And then there's ones where maybe that isn't
Yeah.
like how they want to behave. And so, you could complain about your company, or you could just go find a company that fits your own DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Matching your own DNA with the company's DNA. I
Yeah,
like
and
it.
that's what it's funny. I'm gonna try, Shay. I guess I'll be super controversial in your podcast today. But like when I see the remote work versus like in-person work arguments, like, and you see this on LinkedIn and everywhere, it's like, oh, this company wants in-person work and they don't trust their people. And then, the flip side is like, well, we don't believe remote work is effective. It's like there's a million companies in the US alone. I think it's totally fine to have a company be remote. I think it's
Mhm.
totally fine to have a hybrid culture. I think it's totally fine if you want your employees in office. I mean, I know it's a talking point, but like employees, like if you're looking for a great job, there's plenty of everything. Take the time to go find the right company for you. No,
Mhm.
if your company like wants you in office and you don't want to go in office, I'm not trying to say like it's not hard to find a new job. Like I'm not trying to dismiss that. So maybe it takes you 6 months to go find the right company. But if the company's the wrong fit for you in your life, wishing that the company would change or complaining about it isn't as effective as just finding a company that speaks to you.
Mhm.
Same
Yeah.
thing with employers, finding employees that fit what they're looking for, I think is important.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I would love for you to share a little bit about your company, and how you're supporting people in having happier companies.
Yep. So, we've got our company, Happy Companies. We're about 2.5 years old now. And we solve a complex problem with a simple solution. So, when you have an organization at scale, which is, I'd say, a company more than, let's just call it 25, 20 people, how do you enhance communication and collaboration and manager effectiveness at scale? And hiring, we're a big believer, by the way, in human coaching and consulting. We have a lot of partners that are coaches and consultants, but there is no company that hires an executive or leadership coach for every employee in the entire company. And so what we do is we provide technology that enhances communication and collaboration by providing coaching at scale. And we do it through Slack, Microsoft Teams, Gmail. And that's where the AI comes in, as we offered AI enhanced coaching through like these tools that employees use every day. And so it's all personalized and contextualized. So for example, if you and I work together and you and I were having a meeting tomorrow at 1 in the afternoon, you might get a message at 9 in the morning from Happy slacking you going, hey, you've got a meeting with James tomorrow. Or, you've got a meeting with James later. Here's 3 things that you should do in your meeting. Here's 3 communication tips. Or for example, in a live Teams meeting, Happy will actually coach you with communication do's and don'ts on the other participants in the meeting. So like in your Teams meeting, it'll be like, here's 2 things to do. Here's something to avoid. And so we also do self-improvement and self-awareness coaching. So a couple days a week, you're going to get self-improvement tips or self-development tips. And so, it's a solution at scale. It uses continuous learning and also on-demand learning. And we've had really great results. I mean, I'll give you like one stat. So most tools like that an HR team or a business, like most business tools when they're implemented in an organization, let's say like a new HR software, you're lucky if you can get 20% of the company to use that software. It's very difficult. 90 days after putting Happy in, we have over 90%, like 93% use. So what that means is that every day we send you a Slack, takes you 2 minutes to read, and it's advice on one of your coworkers or a self-improvement tip.
That's wild.
Simple, lightweight, easy. People get
Yeah.
value from it. And then 93% of people continue to use it after 90 days. So we're essentially, if you could imagine, coaching the entire organization simultaneously at scale.
Yeah. Well, and I love it because it's kind of taking a little bit of personality into account. And I think before we started recording, you were talking about, if we had a meeting or we were going to be communicating and we're both A-type personalities, the AI is going to not have you communicate to me in a certain way versus if you weren't an A-type personality talking to an A-type personality. Can you share that piece a little bit?
Yeah, it's really simple. I mean, the coaching is all contextualized and personalized for you based on your own work style. And so it's really simple and easy. Like we can onboard a company in a day or two. It's like 10 minutes. So it's the actual process is like really easy. But essentially what happens is that once we understand how you like to work and communicate, so you take a simple assessment. We call it the Happy assessment, but it is modeled on DISC. So it takes like 5 minutes, 10 minutes for you to take your assessment. And then once we know how you like to work and communicate, and we know how, say, your coworker likes to work and communicate, when we render coaching to you, it's just personalized to you. And then by the flip side of it is it's personalized to the coworker also. So like if you're working with Randy's getting coaching on you. It's giving Randy coaching based on his work style. And so, for example, I use this a lot. Like it's kind of a easy one, but let's say Randy's very introverted and you're very outgoing and very talkative. It might give Randy some advice, and it might say, hey, when meeting with Shay, start with asking about how things are going, and like ask her, some small talk. Ask her how her day is, how's your week going? Something simple. By the flip token, it would probably for you not advise doing that. It would say something like, when working with Randy, maybe get right into work and talk personal stuff if he wants to.
If he wants to.
And I'm giving you a very simplified example, but I like using this just because one of the things that we hear from leaders, young leaders, is like they'll go, let's say the CEO is very data oriented, and they'll go into a meeting and pitch an idea, and the CEO just listens the whole time. And then at the end says, thank you, and really doesn't really respond, right? Like processes the pitch and doesn't really respond. And they walk out of the meeting and they tell us, hey, the CEO doesn't like me.
Yeah.
And it's a total misread.
Yeah.
Because the CEO is really probably more introverted, probably more interested in data, probably wants some time to analyze it. But you're looking at things through your lens, which your lens is like, well, they didn't respond to you in an extroverted way. And so this happens to leaders all the time. And I think it takes time to, like, you've got to learn your team.
Yeah.
And the problem is, Shay, in most companies, that's left up to the employee to figure out.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. So how can people maybe utilize your system? Do you kind of have a free gift? And then would you also tell us about if they're maybe not such a big company, but they want to do the profiling themselves? Tell us a little bit about that too.
Yeah, really easy. So if you're an organization that has more than 10 people, you can go to happycompanies.com and you get a free trial for 30 days. It takes like maybe 20 minutes to get set up. It's really easy. You can send invites to everybody in your workforce. It doesn't cost you anything, but we have happyprofile.com that's coming out very soon. Probably by the time this airs, it'll be up, and anybody can go and get their own happy profile and then get self-coaching for free. And so we're doing this just to kind of as a give back to the community. And so it's like, if you want to understand your work style better, by the way, you can share it on LinkedIn, Facebook, you can share your work style with anybody you want. And then you get email coaching absolutely free. And so the email coaching comes in twice a week, and it's all self-development, self-improvement stuff. So happyprofile.com doesn't cost anything. And then if it's working for you and you like it, you can always convert it into a team account. And then you can invite your coworkers and you can tell your boss how awesome it is.
Right. Well, and show them, right? If you're starting to communicate better, you're probably going to also start getting crazy awesome results. And they'll be like, well, what have you guys changed? And well, we're communicating. We actually know what's happening. We know each other. We, beyond. So I love that. My last question for you, James. What is a takeaway or memorable note you'd like to leave our audience with?
Man, you were the hard questions at the end.
Yeah, right?
My takeaway, I have not seen any company or manager or leader not say that investing in people has produced an ROI for them.
Mm.
Investing in people is the best ROI. It's your competitive advantage. And so I think, the data would show it. If you look up like some of Gallup's data, Gallup has a great resource for understanding what engaged people, how they produce profit and productivity over a disengaged workforce. I would urge people to always invest in their people because it always pays off.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank our audience for also joining us on another episode of Creating Powerful Impact. I'm excited for you to take all of these lessons and these resources that you've learned here, implement them, and create even more impact in your world. Until next time, have an outstanding rest of your day. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Creating Powerful Impact podcast. If you are a successful coach, speaker, author, or thought leader who would like to be on this program, simply visit creatingpowerfulimpact.com/guest. If you are someone who got something out of this interview, would you please do me a favor and share this episode on social media? Just do a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend or post it on your socials. Also, if you know somebody that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show and include the hashtag Creating Powerful Impact. I love seeing all of your posts and great guest selections. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show, and they really mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more about us? Head on over to our website, graceandeaseproductions.com, or follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Just look for Grace and Ease Productions on your favorite platform. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.